we are talking about something that we talked about back in like September, October, sometime in that, when we were talking about domain and range. As a matter of fact, we did these actual questions right here. Okay. So what we're talking about today is actually nothing new, but we have not talked domain and range in a long time. We saw it yesterday just a little bit, but we just don't see a whole lot of domain and range. So this is going to kind of bring it back. We do have domain and range questions on our next test. Okay, so that's do what? No, our next major thing is going to be next Thursday, where we have the test over this unit, which is our last major test, except for so we have this major test, and then when we come back that week, we take our y'all will be taking y'all's English 1 test, I think, that week, and then you'll be taking the math practice test. And so I know that kind of sucks. You're going to have back-to-back tests like that. But to me, it's kind of exciting because you are going to get to see that all the work we've done has kind of paid off. And even on the off chance that you fail, if you follow my strategies, you should barely fail. Okay. And then that should make you see, oh my gosh, if I just take care of business the month before the STAR test, I'm going to be ready for this sucker. And so that's the big thing that I'm really excited about. You're going to get to see that what we've been doing really pays off. All right. So first off, we're going to start with the fact that this is domain. Okay. So I want to remind you, of course, we got this poster. I'm sorry, I'm going to be like coming over here all day. That domain is the X values, range is the Y values, and that whenever we have a picture, we crop. So I don't know if y'all remember drawing the cropping lines, okay? But anytime that we are doing domain and range, we like to crop the picture. Now, anytime on these graphs that the graph goes to the edge, you're going to draw arrows. So do me a favor, draw these arrows real quick. I just want to make sure that you acknowledge that there's arrows right there. So draw arrows on your paper right here. Just at the bottom right there. I want to make sure everybody says, hey, when it goes to the edge of the paper, there's arrows right here, because those arrows are really important. So right there, there's arrows, arrows, arrows. Ah. So when there are arrows, we go to crop this right here, but you're not allowed to crop an arrow, okay? So you can't draw a cropping line. When you go right here, to crop this, there's an arrow. You can't crop an arrow. What do we call it when you can't crop anything? Does anybody remember? All real numbers. So this would be all real numbers. So whenever you're dealing with a graph like this, unless it stops short, if it goes to the edge of the graph, domain is usually all real numbers. Okay? So domain is usually all real numbers. Now, range is not always all real numbers. It can be every once in a while, but range usually has a stopping point, okay? All right, so look right here, and we got range. It's almost the same kind of question here. And yes, there are still arrows right here. But range is the Y's. Now, when we do Y's, we have to draw lines that cross the Y axis. Okay, so those lines will go this way. Well, I can't draw any lines down here because there's arrows. But, and this is why range is different, I do have right here, we can draw that line right there. We have a top. So range, most of the time, will have a top or a bottom, and sometimes a top and a bottom. Every once in a while, there'll be arrows on the top and the bottom, but most of the time, it has a top or a bottom. Now, remember, this crossed the y-axis. Where does it cross the y-axis at? That would be 0 right there. So it's definitely not D. It's not all real numbers. I know all these say 0. I want to remind you, if there are no open circles, which there are no open circles here, there has to be an equal to bar And B is the only one that has that equal to bar. So the answer should be B. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at this one. So once again, it's a range. So yes, there are arrows here. We are talking about the y-axis. That means these lines have to cross the y-axis. They're going horizontally. I cannot draw a line right here, but I can here. I want to see this on your paper. I'm going to walk around. Oh, that's terrible. Dear Lord. Okay, I got to do this on the right side today. That's terrible. All right, so I want to see y'all draw this line right here. Okay, so there's a bottom to this, and it's that bottom. Go to your line should touch the very bottom of that right there. And when it touches the bottom, notice it touches the number 1. Okay, so since it touches 1, we can get rid of that. There are no open circles. So right here, draw a line. Draw this line right here. Just at the bottom of that picture, like that right there. So there are no open circles, so it has to have an equal to bar. The only answer that has an equal to bar is A. Can you see this right here? So an open circle looks like this. A closed circle is filled in. There isn't one. So since there's not one, you always put an equal to bar. And so what I tell kids is, if you're going to make a mistake, put an equal to bar. Okay. So if you're not sure, put an equal to bar. The open circle should be obvious, because how often do we see open circles? We don't really. I mean, we see them every once in a while, but we don't see a lot of. So when you see an open circle, it should be like, oh my gosh, there's an open circle here. And that's when we don't put the equal to bar. All other times you put an equal to bar. All right. So once again, domain. There are arrows here. Domain is the one that can have all real numbers more often. So all real numbers is a real possibility here. Can you crop this side right here? No, there's an arrow. Can you crop this side? No, there's an arrow. So the answer would be all real numbers again. So domain, especially when you're dealing with graphs, just these ordinary graphs, it's not real life or anything. They tend to be all real numbers more, okay? Now, there are times that it's not all real numbers, so we'll show you. So there's 2 situations where they're not all real numbers. One is when they specifically in the graph, or 2 is if it's real life. In real life, things don't go on forever, right? So in real life, it automatically cuts off there because we're throwing a ball in the air and it hits the ground. It doesn't hit the ground and continue plummeting through the ground to the center of the earth. Okay, so it stops at some point. Okay, this is not multiple choice, so you need to make sure that you're doing this with us, okay? So domain is x less than less than. Remember, this will always be given to you. You'll never have to do this on your own in this class. Now, what we have to do, domain, is when we crop the x-axis. So you have to draw a line, and I'm sorry, but I got to do it from here today because my lines have been terrible on the other side. You're going to draw a line that crops that right there. What number did we hit right here? That -5? Yeah, -5. So -5. I don't see any open circles. So if we don't see any open circles, we always put an equal to bar. Okay, always put that equal to bar. Okay, then we're going to go to this side and crop it. And that touches +5. Once again, I still don't see an equal to bar. All right, so that's the domain. Domain, we're always, so my graph goes on the x-axis, my graph goes from -5 to +5. That's what the domain is saying right there. All right, so now we're going to do the y. So we're going to go y less than. And we're going to crop the bottom of this picture. So that's touching 0 on the y-axis. Remember, your answers have to come from the y-axis for range. So 0. There are no open circles, so I put an equal to bar. And then we crop the top and we get 5. And once again, no open circles, so we put an equal to bar. Is that you? Yeah, I think that is you. All right. So this one right here is just kind of showing you that, yes, you can have it to where it cuts it off. All right, and then this is more real life, okay? So this is where it would be applied to real life. So we got 2 quarterbacks here. We're going to make this one right here Andre. So write Andre right there. Andre. All right. Andre is the backup quarterback, and you'll see why he's the backup quarterback here in a second, okay? So Andre and Brett are throwing the ball. So Andre throws the ball, and the x-axis represents how long it stays in the air. So when Andre throws the ball, it starts at 0. So does that make sense? So you don't start the clock until you let go of the ball. So right here, by the way, I would not draw any cropping lines because y'all really don't get to erase very well. Just watch me draw my lines, okay? So right here is where we would crop that, and it starts at 0. So for the domain, x less than, he starts at 0. There's no open circles, so we got an equal to bar there. So he throws this football. They start timing him. How long does his football stay in the air? So we're talking about Andre. Yeah, like 4 point. I'd probably say it's a little bit less than. Yeah, that's exactly what I would say. It would be right here at 4.2. So 4.2, if you said 4.3, I would go with 4.3. It's a little bit below 4.5 though. All right. So when Andre throws the ball, it goes from, the ball will stay in the air from 0 to 4.2 seconds. Now, he's the backup quarterback. Why is he the backup quarterback? Very good. So Brett threw the ball. So really quick, let's talk about Brett's domain. So x less than. So Brett gets up and Brett throws the ball. Oh, by the way, I forgot to put an equal to bar here. So Brett, once again, starts at 0 time. They're not going to start his time until he lets go of the ball. So he lets go. And this is why he is the starting quarterback, because how long does his ball stay in the air? 5 seconds. Right there. There are no open circles, and so the domain is simply telling me on the x-axis what's happening. But in real life, we add what's going on, what's talking about time. So in real life, it's 0 to 4.2 seconds and 0 to 5 seconds that the ball's in the air. All right, so now let's talk about range. Range is going to be y less than. If you want, there's no open circles. You can go ahead and put your equal to bars if you want to. There's no open circles anyway. Okay, so range. So here's the weird part on this range right here. I'm going to erase these real quick. He actually doesn't start at 0. I would say he starts around 5 or 6 feet. Does anybody know why he starts at 5 or 6 feet? Because when you throw the football, the ball's not on the ground. Where's the ball? Yeah, it's on his arm. So it's going to be 5 or 6 feet in the air. Okay. But I'm not going to draw a cropping line at 5 or 6 feet because the ball goes and it eventually hits the ground. So since it hits the ground, it eventually makes it all the way to 0. Does that make sense? So because it hits the ground down here, 0 is the lowest that the range goes because it eventually hits 0. Now, what's the highest that Andre goes? Andre goes, so this is 60 to 80. I think this is above 70. I would probably say what, 72, 74. You could even say 75. Anybody want to pick a number? 75. I like 75. All right. So Andre throws now. We were talking about this. I have no idea because I've never measured what anybody threw vertically, but 75 feet in the air would be about 30 yards. So we were trying to think of a quarterback throwing a football. Like if you were trying to throw it high to where it came in like over the shoulder, I could maybe see that throwing it that high. It seems pretty high to be throwing it. All right. So now let's see what Brett does. Wrong thing. I want to erase. All right. So Brett now is our starting quarterback. He's got a much better arm. Now he's still, his ball's going to hit the ground. So when we go wide, listen, it's still going to hit the ground at 0. So 0 is as low as it goes. As high as it goes, like 104, 103, 105. Let's go 105. We'll just stick with the number 5. So he is really throwing that ball up high. Yeah, it's almost like he just took it and they tried to see how high they could throw it or something. So yeah, and so in the end, it was probably just they were trying to see like how high they could throw it. It probably wasn't a realistic pass of how high, because like realistically, you wouldn't throw it that high. So, but honestly, I've never measured like, I've never seen like them take a quarterback and see like how high a deep pass would go. I don't know how high they throw it. So maybe they do throw it that high. Yeah. So, all right. So this is domain and range. Range here obviously saying that it went from the ground to 75 feet high and from the ground to 105 feet high. So domain and range is not always all real numbers, okay? Like the domain is not always all real numbers. It is if you're typing it in the calculator, or if they're just giving you a graph that just, like they're just giving you one of these graphs up here, it can be all real numbers when you do domain, okay? Range is usually not all real numbers, okay? It's very rare that range is all real numbers. It can happen, but it's rare. Okay, flip this over to the back. So this is what we talked about yesterday. So today I want to walk around and see if y'all actually understood what we talked about yesterday. Why is this supposed to be easy? Do y'all remember? Does anybody remember why this right here, when you see this, you should be like, yes, this is easy. We can put it in the calculator anytime we see equals 0. Now, do you actually type in equals 0 into the calculator? No. Equals 0 is just like y equals. We cannot add an extra equal sign in there. So the only thing you're going to type in is what comes before it. Then you're going to hit menu 5.1. Solutions are where this touches the x-axis. Okay, so we're going to walk around and make sure that everybody knows how to plug that in and how to find your 2 answers. It should be really easy. Okay, so I want you to do these 2 right here. Okay. Okay, yeah, so just tap that in right there. And remember, this is under graphs. It's under graphs. Yeah, we got to do this. All right, so we're going to type this in. You can't type in equals 0. Okay, and then you're going to hit menu 5.1 and find where it's crossing the x-axis. So we're doing these 2 questions right here. Very good. Menu 5.1. And then you're just going to take that tracer to the x-axis on both sides. So as you see that, mark off the answers that don't have a positive 0.46. There you go. And then go to the other side. You get your answer. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so you're going to take that to the x-axis. because that's what a solution is when it goes to the x-axis. So you hit to the side to take it to the x-axis. There you go. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. One more. Okay. So right there gives you a negative 0.86. So you're going to mark off anything that does not have a negative 0.86. So mark off the positive ones. And then you're going to go to the other side. And just wherever it touches right there, you should have your answer. Very nice. Very nice. All right, so we're typing. Okay, very good. Menu 5-1. And then you're just taking that tracer to the x-axis and just finding out. So it was positive 0.46. So mark off the negative 0.46. And then just go to the other side real quick. And that is a negative 0.86. So which one has a negative? So that one right there. And then do that one right there. Yep. 6. Yeah, so that 8 right there would just round that to a 2. So yeah, that would count. Very nice. So when you get that 0.46 right there, mark off anything that doesn't have a positive 0.46. So mark off B and C. And then you're typing in the 0.86, right? Okay, so type that in, see what happens. So go back down. Go down. Go down again. Oh, go the other way then. Just go the other way. Right, go this way. There you go. Oh, go back one. All right, and then a negative 0.86. So you marked off C and B, and then this is the only one that has the negative 0.86. Yeah. Does that make sense? All right. Go back down. Go back down. Nope, no way. All right, so you want to stop at the x-axis. Okay. So you stop at the x-axis. So the answers are when we get to the x-axis. Okay, very good. Yeah. The 0.46, and then when on the other side would be 0.86. All right, so do that one real quick. All right, so we typing that one in. All right, so menu 5-1. That's good. So that would round to 0.62, right? So it's a positive 0.62, so you can mark off all the negative 0.62s. There you go. And then go back. You got your answer. Get that one, very nice. And then tap that one in right there. Very good. Are you doing this one right here? So be careful when you look at these. I have a feeling that you probably got this right here and you thought it was negative, but it was actually positive. The answer was C on this one. So just be careful when you're going through. Okay. All right. So did we get that other one? Very good. Very good. Very good. Did you get that other one? Yeah. So type this one in right here. So for those of you online, what we did was we typed this into the calculator. Okay, we hit menu 5-1, and then all we're doing is looking to see where it crosses the x-axis. So we're taking the tracer and we're moving it here, moving it there, and that's how we're getting our answers. So on this one right here, we got A was the answer on this one. And then on this one right here, we typed this in and we checked where they crossed the x-axis and we got C. All right. So on this next one, while yes, I do kind of want to walk around and see if you guys know how to do this, I think that everybody could just start typing these in and checking these points. So what I want to make sure that some of y'all get, those of you that want to make your lives a little bit easier, I want to make sure that you remember this is called vertex form. And if you take the x coordinate of the vertex, that number should go inside the parentheses with the x. So the x coordinate goes inside the parentheses with the x. When it goes inside of parentheses, it changes signs. So this 2 actually becomes a -2. So I'm going to do either A or C. The y coordinate stays on the outside, and it is not in parentheses, so it stays the same. So it would still be a +1. So I think the answer is A. So if you know how to do that, that makes your life a little bit easier. If you don't, you just start typing them in and checking the points. Y'all are great at checking points. Just make sure that this first point is a vertex. So it's got to be at the very top or the very bottom. So let's go type this in real quick. So we're going to type in, let's see, fraction bar 5/9, parentheses, x -2, close parentheses, squared, and then +1. All right, so we're going to hit menu 5-1, and we are just simply checking these points. So the first point I would always check is the vertex, because if the vertex doesn't match, it doesn't matter if the other point is there. So we typed in 2. I got the point 2-1, which is correct. So this is correct. Is that a vertex? Yes, it's at the very bottom. So if it's at the very top or the very bottom, then that is, that's your vertex. All right, so then we're just going to check -1. Now, -1 and 6 can be anywhere. We don't care where this is at. It just has to show up. It did. So that is my answer right there. It is A. Okay, these next 2, I do need to know if you know how to do. All right, so when we see that there's an equal sign here, and we see all these have equal signs, we do not hit menu 5-1 on this one. Okay, does everybody remember how to do this? When there's an equal sign here, this is an equation and all these are equations. We type this one in, see what color it is. Type these in, see which one makes that change colors, okay? So we can't forget how to do those. That happens anytime we have equations here and equations there. Also, I want you to do this one. Now, this doesn't have an equation, but it has a picture. And all we're trying to do is type this in and match the picture. You still should not hit menu 5-1 on this, because when as soon as you hit enter, if that picture doesn't pop up, that's not your answer. Okay? So we're going to do these 2. We're going to walk around and just check those 2 real quick. All right? Just make sure you know how to do those 2. All right. So are you good? You were kind of gone when we did this, but you did it on the last unit where you type this in, get the color, type those in, and see which one makes it change color. Okay. All right. So we're typing this in right here. Oh, what's going on? All right. So we're typing this in. Now, because this is an equation and all these are equations, you're going to type this in and see what color it is. Type all these in and see which one makes it change color. Does that make sense? All right. And then after that, you'll type these in and just tell me which one looks like that picture. Okay. So when you get this one, let me know those so that I can come over and check it. All right. So this is an equation and all these are equations. So we're going to type this in and see what color it is. Type these in and see which one makes that change color. Very good. Very good. Very good. Very good. Very nice on both of them. All right. So on this one right here, this is where we got an equation here and equations there. So we type this in, see what color it is, type those in and see which one makes it change its color. And then on this one right here, so you're still going to type that in. It's a y equals right there. So you're still going to type that in under graphs. And then all you're doing, oh, that one, even that one you would type under graphs because y equals, but I want you to do this one first. So this one right here, you're just going to type these in and see which one matches that right there. Okay. And I mean, like, you shouldn't hit anything. If it doesn't show right here, then it's not the answer. Does that make sense? Very good. Very nice. All right, so very good. So now on this one, they give you a picture. All we got to do is match it. So you're just going to type these in. Now this picture should show up about right here. So if you type it in, if that doesn't show up, that's not the answer. All right. It changed colors. It was red, right? So yeah, I'll tell you. Okay, so on this one, they give you a picture already, right? So what we're going to do is just type this in and see which one matches. Now, it should show up about right here. So if you type something in and it doesn't show up, it's not the answer. Move on to the next one. Okay. Very nice. Yes. Okay. So on this one, you're going to type these in and see which one matches this. Now, this should show up about right here. So if it doesn't show up, it is not the answer. Good. Very good. Got that. Very good. All right. So do we ever get this one? Oh, so as soon as you, wait. Hit Robert. So the other day, there was a kid that sat over there, wears a black hoodie every day. So he thought it was you. All right. Okay, so we don't want to hit menu 5.1 on this because it should pop up. Okay, if you hit menu 5.1 and you don't see this axis right here, you won't know when you got it. That's the answer right there. So which one was that? 12x plus 15. So that would be D. Does that make sense though? So on this, when you're trying to match the picture, you don't need to go looking for it. If it doesn't show up right here, it's not the answer. You just keep going. Okay. All right, you get it? Yep, very good, right there. Okay, so now on this one, they give you a picture, right? All you got to do is type these in and see which one looks like this picture. Now, that picture should end up right here. So if you type it in and it doesn't pop up right there, it's not the answer. You don't need to hit menu 5.1 or anything. Just move on to the next equation. Okay, so it should pop up right here to be that answer. So just start typing those in and just see which one looks like. Did you get it? Very good. Very good. You get it? Yep, very good. All right. Oh, let me check back here, make sure she got this. Very good. That matches. All right. So whenever you're doing this, it should be really close. Now, the one thing I don't like about these problems is like when you type this in, nothing appears on most of these. I would usually say something's going to appear. But what will happen is it will appear over here. It will appear up here, okay? And there's only going to be one that appears right there. They will not have, or at least they usually don't, have two equations where one appears here and then one appears like right next to it, where it's really hard to tell the difference. It should be obvious, but usually something always appears. And so, unfortunately, the program I'm using right now, like they're just off everywhere. They're all over the place. And so, like I said, maybe it'll be a little bit tougher, but in the end, the idea is all you got to do is match it, you know, in terms of like where the vertex is located, where it's crossing the x-axis, and you should be fine. All right. So yesterday we introduced this to y'all. Do y'all remember what this symbol right here means? It's a positive and a negative, yes. So that means, first off, this is the same. You're just going to type this in. It's equal to 0. We're just going to type this in and find our two decimals. But then we're going to type these into the calculator. and see which one matches our decimals. Once with a positive, once with a negative, if we need to. And we don't need to on all these. Okay? All right. So first off, we got to go type this in. So do the same thing you would normally do with equals 0. We're going to plug it in, and we're going to go find our where it crosses the x-axis. All right, so we're going to type in 4x squared plus 2x minus 3. And hit enter. All right, we're going to hit menu 5.1 and we're going to go find our zeros. Now, the only difference is today, when you're doing these right here, I would write this down because we're going to have to switch from our calculator to from graphs to calculator. So I'm going to write this down. So I'm going to write down 0.651 and uh-oh, I didn't do it. And negative 1.15. So negative 1.15. Well, I mean, if you call, so these phones are not like the old phones where all the numbers led directly to the office and then they send them to us. We have our own phone number, which is why we get all those fake calls all the time, telemarketers. So yeah, if you accidentally just happen to dial my direct number, do what? So every time they try to call Tennyson, wow, that's crazy. That would just to sit and hold on a conversation for 30 minutes and then go, oh, this is nonsense. I don't show that kid goes here. What are you talking about? Ah. Ah. So now that you have this, now we are going to go type in our answers. So we're going to go type this in right there with just a plus sign. Okay. So we're going to go to regular calculator, the same place we've always gone anytime we have radicals. Do a fraction bar first because it's a big fraction. And we're going to do 1 plus the square root of 13 over 4. Just make it look exactly like it and hit enter. This is actually really close. This is a positive 1.5. That's really close. I want a negative 1.5, but this is not the answer. So you can mark off A. We don't need to do the other one. So if one of them doesn't match, it doesn't matter what the other one is. So we only have to do one. Now, when I look at my answers, do you see that D is really close? Now, I don't know if this will work or not, but since D is really close, maybe that will give me a negative 1.15. So I'm going to go up and highlight and hit enter. And I'm going to switch this. The only difference is that it's a negative 1. So I'm going to put a negative 1 right there and hit enter. All right, this gives me a 0.65. That's actually this top number right there. So far, this is good. This one right here, we're typing in D. D is good so far. So go up, hit enter, and we're going to type in the same thing, except this time, instead of the plus, we're going to put minus. And that does give me the negative 1.15, so D is my answer right here. So in the end, the big thing, this should not be hard to find the decimals. But if they don't give you a decimal answer, you got to plug this in and turn it into a decimal. So that's all we're doing. And then that plus or minus means that you check the plus and the minus. All right. With that being said, put your names on your papers. We are done.